Good morning, everyone. Happy Easter to you all. Welcome to church this morning. I'm Reverend Howard Dana, and I'm the senior minister here at First Parish in Concord, and I want to welcome you to this Easter service, this beautiful day that we have gathered on. Whether you're in and around Concord or somewhere else in the United States or even somewhere else in the world, we are so glad that you have joined us this morning for church. It's going to be a great celebration. We're glad that you are here for it. There are lots of other folks who are helping out with church this morning, and I'll just run through the screen as they appear on my screen. Reverend Liz Weber is here.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Easter and welcome to First Parish in Concord.
And Eric Hunicke on keys.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Jade Sylvan is here.
Good morning, happy spring, and happy Easter.
And the Reverend Amy Friedman.
Good morning. Happy Easter, everyone.
Dawn Van Patten is here this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to church on this beautiful Easter morning.
And Beth Norton.
Good morning. What a beautiful morning to be together. Happy Easter.
Adrienne Betancourt is here.
Hi, so pleased to be with you all. A second Easter.
And Sarah Ritchie is on tech today. Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning and happy Easter.
We start this morning with a call to worship that are words that are very familiar to many of us. This from the Gospel of Mark, the 16th chapter. When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so they could go and anoint the body of Jesus. And very early on the first day of the week, they went to the tomb when the sun had risen. They were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the door of the tomb?" And looking up, they saw that the stone was rolled back, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were amazed. He said to them, "Do not be amazed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him as he told you." Let us worship together. And now Liz is going to have us light our chalices.
If you have a chalice or a candle nearby, I invite you to kindle that flame, and we will do that together as a way to connect us each in our own homes. If you don't have one, that's all right. You are still part of this body and interconnected. Each time that we do kindle our flames, we have a chance to, with this match, with this spark, take in the hope and renewal and strength that our chalice and our community offer. May those be yours today as we gather for an hour of renewal. And let us say together our chalice lighting response. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. Let us sing together now. Our first hymn is Jesus Christ Has Risen Today.
Singing hands and earth revive.
Wow, just imagine hearing that on the organ in person. I want to talk to all the children who have joined us now for a minute or two. We know that you're in church every single Sunday and that we always want there to be a part of the service for you. Now, it's Easter week, and this can be a little confusing, it's not real simple. So I want to kind of walk us a little bit through how we got to today, because today is definitely a happy day. It's a joyous day. It's a big day. It's probably the biggest day in the whole Christian tradition. But how did we get here? Well, the story tells us, and I'm going to show you a picture here, that after Jesus was crucified and after he was dead and after his friends had given up all hope that they would ever see him again, then he reappears to them. And here's a picture in a book that I really like, because it shows that Jesus here among his friends, and you can see, some of them are really happy to see him. Some are a little bit confused, but mostly everybody's just amazed to see him again, because the truth is they saw him die and they knew that he was put in a tomb, and this was not expected. You see Jesus right here in white, and he's looking like he always does. He just walked in from the street and he's like, here I am, I didn't go anywhere. He's holding out his hands there for them to see him. Well, we know that this story is a little bit confusing because Jesus was a really great teacher and a prophet. He went all over his land and he healed people. He had a way of seeing people and talking to people that made them feel better, made them feel seen and heard. He often talked to people that other people didn't want to talk to. He talked to people who were sick. He talked to people who were not his own religion, who weren't Jewish. He talked to women, and that wasn't really done so much in those days. He even talked to tax collectors and people that just knew that they were at the bottom of society. So here's this amazing man who has been teaching and healing for 3 years. And then he comes to Jerusalem, and everybody's happy to see him, everybody except the authorities, because his presence means trouble. And the last thing the authorities wanted was trouble during Passover. And the story tells us that that last week in Jerusalem had some real highs and some real lows for Jesus and all of his followers. Jesus is talking about this whole new way of being, this new way of seeing the world. And he keeps telling people that they should not be afraid and that they should trust God and that they should love their neighbors as themselves and that they should do kind things for other people. And so that's really resonating with a lot of folks, but it's making some other folks mad that he's stirring up the people. Well, the story gets really, really sad because he's actually arrested, and then there's this sort of mock trial, and then he's killed. And his friends take his body down off the cross and they put it in this tomb and they roll a big stone in front of the tomb, and that's it. It's done. No more. And they're really frightened too, and they're scattered and they don't know what to do in those days. So 3 days goes by. And then these women come just to kind of take care of the body a little bit more and to make sure that it's safe in the tomb. And they show up, and there's this young man there in a white robe, and he says that Jesus isn't there. Well, this is really confusing for them and pretty confusing for us too. And then there are stories of Jesus appearing to his followers. And we don't really know what to make of this because it's very clear that he was dead, but it's very clear that he's going on, and that in the memory of those people or in their vision for the future, Jesus is living on. And we'll get a little bit more into whether it was a bodily resurrection or not in the sermon, but I don't want us to get stuck there, because the message of all of this is that there is real hope and that love is stronger than death, and that this good man's teachings and his words went on. So I'm going to give you one more look at this picture because it's such a nice one. It just shows, see how big the grins are on those people's faces. See how pleased they are to see him again. And we're pleased to see him as well. Thanks for joining me for the children's story. And now we're going to hear the children's choir sing a song for us.
Shalom Harerim, Shalom Harerim, Shalom, Shalom. Gayit Travel, Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Harerim, Shalom Harerim, Shalom, Shalom, Gayit Travel, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Harerim, Shalom Harerim, Shalom Harerim, Shalom Harerim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom.
Our reading today is from the book of Luke, chapter 24, verses 36 through 43. While the disciples were talking about reports of Jesus' resurrection, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and terrified and thought that they were seeing a ghost. Jesus said to them, "Why are you frightened? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and feet. See that it is myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." And when he said this, he showed them his hands and feet. While in their joy they were disbelieving and still wondering, he said to them, "Have you anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in their presence.
Thank you, Jade. It is Easter once again. We were here on Zoom just a year ago with an Easter service, and I don't know about you, but I can remember what that felt like. That we were just headed into the pandemic, and that Easter felt heavy. It felt like very little was actually being resurrected. It felt more like we were just going to stay in the tomb for a while. A year later, it feels more like Easter this year. You know, the bright sunshine and the flowers returning, but also the promise of a vaccine and the promise of getting to see the people that we love again, to see family and friends, to be able to hug them and to be able to eat with them and visit with them. The possibility of our world coming back a little bit more to normal, though I don't think it will ever be completely normal. We are experiencing a resurrection time right now. And like most resurrection times, it doesn't just happen all at once. It's going to happen slowly and bit by bit as the weeks continue on and the months continue on, as spring turns into summer and summer turns into autumn. This resurrection time is going to be spread out for us. It's not going to be just automatically one way one day and the next differently the next. And this is kind of how Jesus reveals himself to his disciples too. He shows up little bit by little bit by little bit, and sometimes he's in disguise. There's the great story about how he's walking on the road to Emmaus with a couple of his disciples, and they're talking about all of the things that have been happening in the last week. And folks are pretty confused by this, as they should be. And Jesus is listening to all of this with great interest, and they don't realize it's him. And it's not until they go into an inn and they have some food together that their eyes are opened and they realize it's been him all the time. This resurrection moment is going to be a little bit like that. And some of it's going to be a little bit frightening. I heard a story the other day from a friend of mine who has a very young son who was born just about a year before the pandemic started, and his grandparents in California had planned to come and see him and meet him and all those sorts of things, but that got cut off by the pandemic. So this whole time, his interaction with his grandparents has been over Zoom. So he knows them that way, and he recognizes them and they talk together. Well, they both have been vaccinated now and they came for a visit. And the little boy, upon seeing his own grandparents in the flesh, simply burst into tears. He didn't know what to do with this. His interaction with them had always been over a screen. And here was his grandma and his grandpa in the flesh, and they wanted to talk to him, and they wanted to hug him, and they wanted to hold him. And all he could do was cry because this was new and strange to him. That's the kind of moment that we're in. It feels like we've been in the tomb for a year. It feels like we've been in a confined space, a darkened space, a space that did not have much liberty, a space that had less and less hope as the numbers stacked up as this pandemic went on. We have each suffered great losses this year. The church has lost members. We have lost family members and friends. There have been jobs that have been lost and relationships that have been lost. There have been schooling and dreams and all kinds of things, just little things that we thought were going to be there always and that we could count on, just having dinner with a friend or going to the movies. There have been so many things that have been lost this year that it really feels like we have been in a tomb together. And just like those women who came in that early morning and wondered how on earth they were going to roll the stone back from the tomb, how were they going to get in? We too have wondered who was going to roll away the stone for us. How were we going to be liberated from this restricted life? Well, somehow the stone gets rolled back. The story doesn't tell us how. It just tells us that it was rolled back and they could go right in. And then they're presented with this stranger there. In later Gospels, he becomes an angel, but I like the idea that in Mark, he's just a stranger. He's just a stranger who has a bit of news that these women haven't heard yet. And he tells them that they're going to see Jesus again. Not here. He's not here. He's gone. He's gone ahead to Galilee. And then when he does appear, it's the story in Luke is clear that this is flesh and blood. This is, stick with the story, folks. I mean, there's been a lot of theology done around it, but Luke is clear. Jesus says, look here, look at my hands, look at my feet. And if we needed further proof, Jesus eats a fish, so that's pretty real. Ghosts don't eat fish. And so what do we make of that? What I make of it is don't try to write off this moment. Don't try to explain it away. Just go with this resurrection moment. Just enter into the story wholeheartedly and think about what it would be like to see someone that you loved dearly, who you never thought you would see again, to see them in the flesh and blood. Jesus is also really clear that he's not sticking around. This is not him back for good and going to live another 20 or 30 or 40 years with his friends. This is a momentary glimpse of him. This is something temporary. And what the disciples are going to have to do is the same thing that we have to do, which is carry on his message, to live by his example, to do in the world what he would have wanted us to do. And that's how he truly lives on. It's a little bit like that ending to The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy is back from Oz and she's back in her house and the hurricane, the tornado has gone by, and she wakes up. And if you remember what she does, she's a little confused about where she is. And then her family is gathered around her. And she starts insisting She looks at her Auntie Am and she says, "But you were there, and you were there," she says to the hired hands. And of course, she can see in their faces the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion and the Scarecrow. And they all are confused by this. They're like, "We weren't anywhere. You've been asleep all the time. We've been worried about you." But the story makes it clear that Dorothy has changed, and that those that she loved in her life, both at home and in Oz, have affected her life. And she's not going to be the same after this. That for her too is this resurrection moment. It's this moment when she realizes that things are different. We are emerging, you and I and all of us, from the tomb this spring. We're emerging into a new world that has many of the trappings of the old world, but it is somehow different. And the beautiful thing is, we are given the chance to be different ourselves. We have been changed by this experience. We are coming out of this different people. My hope is that you have been changed like I have, in that you are more patient and that you are more kind, that you are more loving and more forgiving. I hope the world that we come out to cares for each of us more, sees the poor more readily, fights against injustice wherever it comes up, is a world that has more community to it, and more hope, and more love, and more peace. If we can emerge from the tomb into that kind of world, not forgetting what we have been through, but waking up from it to a world that we have the power to change even just a little bit, then we too will have a resurrection moment. We too will live the Easter story. Amen. I'd like to have you answer a question in the chat. What is being resurrected in you this spring? Jot down a short answer in the chat and then I'll read a few of them. What is being resurrected in you this spring? All right, let's see a few of these. What is being resurrected in you? Hope and faith, more awareness of my ancestors, optimism, a holy curiosity, friends and family, hyacinths and hope. Lots of good ones here. The warmer weather, hope and joy, lots of hope in this, a sense of community, joy, patience, faith in what I can't control, gratitude, abundant potential, lots more hope, healing for all, optimism, waking up, trust and acceptance, optimism, joy, deep breaths, togetherness, the pursuit of deeper joy. Take a look at the rest of these in the chat when you get a chance. Thank you for all of those.
Back in December, during the season of Advent, as we were looking towards the story of the birth of Jesus, we lit candles of joy, hope, peace, and love. And then on Friday night, as we told the story of Jesus's crucifixion, we extinguished 4 candles and went in darkness. And those candles were the candles of joy, hope, peace, and love. This morning, our choir anthem brings back joy. Joy shall come in the morning, love shall come in the morning, peace shall come in the morning, and hope shall come in the morning. And we offer it to you this Easter.
Joy shall come in the morning. Joy shall come in the morning soon. Joy shall come in the morning. Joy shall come to you. Out of darkness we have light. Comes the day from the night. Joy shall come in the morning. Joy shall come to you. Peace shall come in the morning. Peace shall come in the morning soon. Peace shall come in the morning. Peace shall come to you. Brothers all in charity, sisters all in unity. Peace shall come in the morning. Peace shall come to you. Love shall come in the morning. Love shall come in the morning soon. Love shall come in the morning. Love shall come to you. Comfort us that we might live, knowing love that we might give. Love shall come in the morning. Love shall come to you. Hope shall come in the morning. Hope shall come in the morning soon. Hope shall come in the morning. Hope shall come to you. Take this pain from the night. Open your heart with wings, take flight. Hope shall come in the morning. Hope shall come to you. Hope shall come to you.
We are coming to the end of our annual pledge campaign. It is the time every year when we gather the pledges that will let us know what work we can do next year. So if you haven't gotten your pledges in, please do so as soon as possible. We really need to get them in this month, like now. So today, Lillian Anderson is going to be speaking to you a little bit about her experience with pledging.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be with you today, to be able to share some of the memories of this place that I love so much, First Parish in Concord. You know, I'm sure that if each of you were asked, you would remember the first time that you walked into the parish hall or into the sanctuary, and you knew that this was a place that you would return to. I can remember in the fall of 1973, when I was newly pregnant with my daughter, Sarah, and we were asked to come to be at First Parish with our next door neighbors. When I walked into the parish hall, I looked around, didn't know anyone, and all of a sudden I realized I was being greeted. Someone was walking toward me, an older woman. Her name was Amy Verrill. And she came up to me and asked me who I was and was I pregnant, because I looked pregnant. And she just enveloped me and embraced me and took me around the parish hall, introduced me to people. And then when my daughter was born in March of 1974, she came to the hospital. Now, to me, that was extraordinary. It was over and above what you would think of as welcoming. But it made such a difference in my life. It meant to me that this was a group of people who cared and who showed their caring. And I'm sure that during your time here at First Parish, you have moments just like that. The other thing that I feel so strongly about is that First Parish, it's not only about getting, it's about giving. It's about giving back. And also that there are opportunities for spiritual growth and to take risk in leadership. What I mean by that is that I was approached when I was just newly there to take leadership positions with really no background or skill in doing it, but with the trust that I was in a safe place and that I had the opportunity to try something that I might not be able to anywhere else. Whether it's on a committee or in a show, it really doesn't matter. It's all about building trust and working together as a community. So that was the past. I want to talk a little bit about the present and the future. We're here now in a moment of time when we have an extraordinary group of lay leaders. I see it everywhere I look. I see it in the standing committee. I see it in the social action groups that have formed and the youth group, this newly formed congregational life committee. This is an opportunity for all of us to change ourselves and to shape this institution that we love. This institution has been around for a long time, but the only way that it will continue is if we continue to place our faith and trust in ourselves and in the institution. So think about what you can do to give back to this place that nurtures and strengthens all of us. I think we are here right now. We are here together. And even though we are in this moment of pandemic when we can't be with one another, what we can do is we can dream about the future together. We can think about what it will be like to be in the parish hall together, to greet each other again. Look around and see each other and know that we will be there for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you to everybody who has come into the shared ministry of this pledge campaign and all of you who have pledged your treasure and your hearts to this community. Each week we offer each other our hearts in community, and I invite you to enter into a time of prayer and meditation for ourselves, for one another, and for our world. You can sit back in your chair a little bit or sit upright if that feels better. And feel your breath. Feel your heartbeat. And know how it is connected to all of our heartbeats, all of us together from our homes. This week, we send our loving hearts, our prayers and wishes out to people who have asked to be held in community. And I welcome you to reach out and ask to be held likewise at any time. You can just email or call. This week, we think of Kate and Richard and their niece, Elizabeth. Kate and Richard ask for healing thoughts and prayers for her. We think of Tony R. as he grieves for his father, of Tony and Janet together. We think of Marilyn L. as she grieves for her cousin Joe. And so we think of Marilyn and Peter. And finally, I have some sad news to share about a former member of our congregation. Wade Williams died of cancer on March 14th. So we all send the Williams family our love, and I send my love to all of you at First Parish who were friends with Wade. Who else is in your heart and who else is in your prayers who you would like to be held in community? You can call their name aloud now, or if you're on Zoom with us, you can type their name into the chat. And either way, know that we are holding one another, holding our world in prayer and in love. And you can keep those names coming as we sing together, Spirit of Life. Will you pray with me or join your heart in meditation? Dear God, who we know in so many ways, we come together today, each having known the highs and lows of Holy Week in our own lives. The joy of being together in the upper room and the longing we feel when we are separated. The pain of grief for one we have loved and the comfort of our memories of them. The confusion of the empty tomb and our sense of wonder and awe at a resurrection. We live sometimes in the highs and sometimes in the lows, and often in the slow transition between the two, often in the mix of many feelings. Some of us are more in touch with our pain today. We send our love, prayers, and caring thoughts to them. May there be a healing for Elizabeth and for all who are injured. May there be ease for Kate and Richard and all who worry for their loved ones. May there be a balm for Tony and Janet, for Marilyn and Peter, for all of you who knew Wade, for all who are grieving. May each of us, when we are in need or pain, reach out for support. May we find comfort in this community of love and care. Some of us are more joyful today. Some of us are fully in this season of renewal and resurrection. May we soak in the miracle and magic brought to us in ancient stories, finding inspiration for our own lives. We rejoice in the hope that comes to us today. We rejoice in the concrete promises of each new morning, of springtime, vaccination, community, hugs, so much more. We rejoice in the larger promises of joy, hope, peace, and love. And we rejoice, finally, always, in the potential for transformation, for spiritual growth, for being changed for the better. May we be gentle and kind with each other in these days and in the time ahead. May we live into our commitment for justice and liberation. And may we hold fast to the hope we find in the Easter story this day. Let us sit together in silence and stillness, soaking in this hope and these promises.
Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of April is the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. So let's hear more about them from our own Margie King Saphir, and she will be at coffee hour as well.
My primary ministry is outside of the church, and so the Peace Institute has been one of my ministries. I have a team who's with First Parish in Concord. In the beginning, it was just me going, and now we have a busload. I just fell in love with the work I saw, the love I saw. And some of that work is the initial encounter with the family after they've experienced the homicide and have learned about it. And the courage it takes to bear witness in a loving way to these families, it's awesome. And in fact, I once said, I have to take off my shoes because I feel like I'm on holy ground. And that experience happens more and more when I'm at the Peace Institute and see their work. To me, the Peace Institute is a place of hope, a place where you will find understanding and a place of peace and a place of transformation, not only of families, but of the community where they are.
So now it is your opportunity to contribute to the good work, not only of First Parish in Concord, but to the Louis T. Brown Peace Institute. And you will see a number that you can use to text your donation. You can put a 50 or a 100, 25 on there, and you're going to need your credit card the first time handy to do this. You can also use our website to donate for this Share the Plate 50-50 split with our church, or you can actually physically mail a check to the parish. And your donations are gratefully received. I'm going to run through a long list of invitations, but do remember that you can find the details on FP Weekly. So reference FP Weekly to find Zoom links or more information. And don't forget to check out our First Parish website and our Facebook page, and to watch our services on YouTube as you like. So we want to remind you that First Parish Family Reconnect is every Sunday just before this service. So it's from 9 to 9:30 before the 10 a.m. service. It's a live Zoom meeting with a brief message and an activity to inspire you and your children. And the Easter egg hunt is on. It is actually a physical Easter egg hunt. There are eggs hidden in the windows, around the church, on the grounds, and you can follow the clues in RE News. FP Weekly also has information on that. So the eggs are visible by walking around the outside of the buildings, looking in the windows, and they'll stay up there through April 18th. So the family will have plenty of time to join in the fun. Please stay and join either the worship sharing circle or the online coffee hour, and you'll find those links in the chat just as we start to end this service. You're also going to find in the chat a link to our online pledge form. So remember, there's a 520 challenge prize, and that is a day of sailing with your friends on Buzzards Bay with Brad Hubbard Nelson. To enter the lottery, you need only to raise your pledge by $520. And be sure to stay on to the end because Eric is going to be playing the Hallelujah Chorus, and you can sing along. The words to that will be in the chat, so you can end your Easter service singing the Hallelujah Chorus. Now let us hear from Standing Committee member CeCe King, who will be hosting coffee hour today.
Good morning. On behalf of the Standing Committee, I will join those of you who want to gather in the coffee hour in the parish hall. And it sounds like Margie will be with us. So if you want to learn more about the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute or the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, it'll be a good chance to do that. A good way to sort of play with resurrection, I think. So join me for whatever feels good today for you at coffee hour. Thanks.
Thank you so much, CeCe. And now we're all going to join in our closing song, which is O Day of Light and Gladness.
This Easter morning, we're asked to do nothing other than to practice resurrection, to just practice it, to see it wherever you go, to see new life coming back, to remember those that you loved, to be the person that you want to be, and to know that in doing this together, we as a community can rise, always rise, and still we shall rise. Please join in the First Parish benediction saying, "Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings."